Babel is lightning, and Babel could be away here. This could wrap it up. Did you ever doubt him?
Do you think then you left Ajax too early then?
I would say I would definitely had to stay another 2 years minimum.
How was your relationship with Rafa Benitez?
You know, I have to give him that. He was a very tactical genius at that time, in my opinion. But he was not a people's manager.
My favourite player of all time, Steven Gerrard. What was he like to play with, to train with?
For me also personally, the best player I play with. At that time, he was in his prime. Yeah, incredible.
What is your view of Ten Hag?
I still believe that Ten Hag is a great coach. I've seen him working, I've seen his vision, and I've seen what he has done once he has the right players. And we got knocked out on Old Trafford by decisions that influenced the game. In my frustration, you know, I lashed out on social media, you know, tweeting about him, and that got me in trouble.
Before we start the episode, we would like to extend a message of thanks to our sponsors for this episode, Al Majdiya Investment. The significant transformations and developments taking place in the kingdom have created promising opportunities for investment and ambitious, innovative entrepreneurs. Our partners and sponsors for this episode, Al Majdiya Investment, are accustomed to seizing these opportunities, enabling entrepreneurs and companies to grow and succeed, and contributing to building a prosperous economic future for the kingdom.
Yeah.
Today we have with us former Ajax, Liverpool, Besiktas and Galatasaray and Holland international Ryan Babel. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you.
First question, bro. So what's the
Amazing,
plan now,
amazing.
like financially? Like, obviously you're leaving football, so what are you going to do?
Yeah, I've been, I must say, I've been very entrepreneurial very early on in my career already. That was part of the criticism that have haunted me, I think, in my career for, you know, people or football fans, media, not finding that I was 100% focused on football. I was doing a lot of other stuff as well.
Yeah.
I do believe with the right time management, there is a balance. And I would advise, you know, football players already to start think about their future and getting involved and educating themselves on other stuff. And that was one of the reasons why I personally did it. Like try to make, you know, a plan for and have something ready for once that day would come. And yeah, one of the reasons now is like I'm doing so much stuff, you know.
Amazing.
And yeah, still trying to now find new life, basically, you know.
That's very important, especially for young young celebrities, athletes that's getting to they field.
Yeah.
Because you sometimes when or these young celebrities or these artists or these, you know, football players, basketball players, you can sometimes think the money would never run out.
Yes.
Boxers, you have a lot of boxers that have hundreds of millions, and so it's very important to start investing early.
Yes.
You know, that's amazing, bro.
But Ryan was telling me outside, so you're into what, crypto, real estate, like, so where is your portfolio and like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, no, well, so obviously real estate, I think, is one of the easiest ways to start investing. I think if you're, you know, it's not that difficult. You don't have to necessarily be a genius to understand real estate. Of course, you can make mistakes with real estate. So for the people who don't know, you can lose money with real estate if you buy the wrong real estate. However, I do believe that is the easiest way for an athlete to start. So that's how I started my investment journey. 2017, crypto came on my path, started investing in Bitcoin, educating myself in Bitcoin. And then fast forward today, you know, I run a crypto community. So yeah, I do educate. I do, give guidance. And yeah, that's where we stand today.
Bro, I invested in crypto in 2017. I lost a lot of money, bro.
Right.
You should have got in contact with him.
Wish I knew the group existed back then. So how did you educate yourself, man? Was it like YouTube videos, like books? Like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I feel like, you know, the internet is obviously very resourceful.
Of course, yes.
I feel like there's too much information. So usually what I believe is, you know, try to find gurus or mentors that you feel like the message can click quickly and stick to them. What people often do is that they listen to so many different gurus
and get confused.
And you get confused, right?
Yeah,
so, you know, for example, with real estate investing, you know, one of the very first, let's say, mentors for me was Grant Cardone. He is very big in the US.
The 10x guy, right?
Yeah, right. And his one of his messages is like, you know, get a lot of good debt so that you can scale real estate. But then if you look at or listen to another guru, he says debt is bad. So you know, all these different advices can get you crazy.
Of course,
so you know, stick to one that sits well with you. And
amazing.
So
but it's also the real estate man. You know that, right?
I know a little bit, but you bought at the right time. Clearly.
Okay.
He knows a lot. He's very humble. But
I'll tell him outside we've got to commit some.
When you're ready to come to Saudi, reach out.
Good.
I'll tell him,
Good.
Inshallah.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's clear. I think Middle East, for me personally, I think is the future. You see a lot of great things happening.
For sure.
They want to do right things. They want to attract the right companies and the best people all over the world, and they make it very lucrative.
You came early where a lot of people are skeptical about the Middle East and things like that. So to see that you're here, that's amazing.
Absolutely.
Have you ever visited Saudi Arabia?
I've been once. Yeah, I've been once. My first visit was to Alula.
Okay.
And then for the boxing and the F1.
So you've been to Riyadh or Jeddah?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Next
so,
time,
very short. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. So Ryan, just going back to football, just kind of start your career. How did that happen? So how did you become a professional footballer? Like, was it kind of your parents nurturing you? Was it your own personal drive? Like, how did that come about?
I always knew that I wanted to become a football player, but of course, when you're a young kid, you don't know if you're going to make it. What I noticed early on, I would say, 8, 9 years old, that I was, pretty talented. I was always the best from my age category. You could feel it at everything. But at that time, growing up in Amsterdam, you had these trials that you could do for Ajax, Amsterdam. Ajax is, the biggest team in the Netherlands. And they do these trials that you can sign up for. And that's what I did. And then I didn't make it twice. So after the second time, I was kind of discouraged. I was still,
And what was your age at this time?
Still, I was around 9. So, every season you can start the trials once a season. So I started at 7 and then I tried at 8 again. And never went through the trial. So at age 9, I was like, you know what, let me just play football for the fun of it. And now they discovered me. So now I got invited, right? So eventually...
That's the
I made
best
it.
way, bro.
Yeah, I made it. I started basically joining the Ajax Academy at age 10. And then throughout the whole academy, I got offered a contract at 16, made my debut very shortly after at 17.
Amazing.
And that's how my career started. Yeah.
So your son, Khalid...
Yeah, that's why I was asking these questions, because my son Khalid recently had a tryout in Saudi, his first tryout.
Okay.
And he didn't make it. He didn't get accepted, but he's still going forward with it.
Absolutely.
He's still making videos and he's still trying.
Yeah.
Which I kind of like, sometimes I it's good to get, of course, you want to make the team. But I like when you don't, you get rejected early because it puts something in you if you're serious. And that's what I wanted to see with my son. I wanted to see if he was really genuine, want to play football. If he get turned away the first time, is he going to run away? So I kind of like that he got rejected the first time, so I can see him, the passion growing him, and he worked harder.
Yeah.
Because that's what you got to see. Like, as a former rapper, I remember we used to have something called Apollo Show, where you go and you do these raps, and if you corny, they throw, they boo you off the stage. And I remember at a young age, 11, 12, maybe I was 12, and I got booed. I went to New York, Harlem, and I got 12 years old, and they booed me off, but it put something inside of me that wanted to work harder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm thinking if they would accept me then, I would have been lazy. I wouldn't have really had that passion, so.
That was actually a real time for hip-hop, actually, like really authentic. You had to be really skillful and talented, and I feel like time has changed a lot.
Time changed, unfortunately.
Mumble rap. But you see that in Khalid, you see him...
No, he's serious, bro.
Yeah?
He just got to keep it up. He's very talented, but he started later because... Americans, we don't really play football.
Yeah.
For our American viewers, soccer. The real one is football. You know what I mean? So to see my someone doing it on his own, you know what I mean? All of his friends, they all play football. So he's on it.
But Ryan, that's a big issue, right? So a lot of kind of young footballers, they don't really take that step to get a professional contract. Like, what advice do you have to give to them that, that don't make it? What should they do?
Well, so like you said, rejection is part of the sport. It's a tough sport. My father always used to ask me like, hey, I was 12 at that time. He was like, why do you believe you're going to be a professional football player? Like, there are so many million kids that want to become a professional player. Why are you special? And yeah, if I think about it, still until this day, I never had the answer to it. But if you look back, I made it over maybe even more talented players than me. It's not just being talented, right? It's a combination of a lot of factors, right? Discipline, mindset, knowing how to play a little bit the politics, right? Because what I noticed was at that time, you had a lot of, like, let's say, teammates at that time, 14 years of age, 13 years of age, who had a big mouth against the coach. These type of attitudes, like it's not done, you know, in sports. And and of course a little bit of luck, timing is always necessary.
Cool.
Absolutely.
What, your personal highlights from your time at Ajax? Like, what do you look back on fondly before the kind of big move to Liverpool? Like, what do you look back on?
I would always give the moment, of course, of my debut, one of the moments that I cherish. The very first time you can play your professional game in a full stadium. I was 17.
Your first time?
Yeah, the very first time, 17.
The kid, right? The
full
baby.
Stadium.
And what was the amount of people that stadium?
I think it was between 40 and 50,000 people.
That's big.
Yeah.
How did you feel?
No, of course. I mean,
pressure.
Yeah, you have to imagine, like, throughout the years before, I was often a ball boy. So you're around the stadium throwing the balls back for the professionals.
I see, yes.
So you already had, kind of like, you knew what the intensity was of the stadium and the crowd. And now you were one of the players. So
it's amazing.
Especially the first few times, it's like you're dreaming.
Yeah, I can imagine, bro.
Yeah.
Amazing. Around this time, Ryan, you also played under Marco van Basten, right? For the Netherlands national team?
Yeah. So the funny was actually before I played my first game, I had him in the second team of Ajax.
Okay.
So he started his coaching career in the second team of Ajax. So I had some experience with him there, learned a lot, big deal. And then shortly after, he became a national team coach.
Okay.
So I think that was my luck for him to give me a chance. He knew who I was. He knew my potential. And then, very quickly at age 18, he called me up, so I was very young to represent the Netherlands. And he gave me my debut in 2005.
How influential was he for you? Because obviously a legendary striker, right? Like, did he give you any tips? Like, how was that?
He was very influential, but to be honest, for those who know him well, his way of teaching you something was very, like, petty. Very petty. And if you were not made...
Give us an example. Like, yeah, what you mean?
He was a striker. I was a striker.
Yes.
And if you look at how he looked when he was young, he was very fragile. He was very thin.
Yeah.
He was not the fastest, but he was very intelligent, very gifted. Yeah. And in the second team, when we used to play games, and I felt like, hey, I did well. I scored a goal, and then he would be like, "How you feel that you played?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, I think I did well. I scored a goal." And then he was like, "If I played yesterday with your quality, with my intelligence, but with your speed, your whatever, I would have scored 4." He said.
Wow.
So I was like, "Oh."
Yeah.
And then basically what he wanted to say, like, you have to, understand the chances more and the possibilities where you can benefit from, like you still don't see it. So he tried to push you in a way, but sometimes, like, it could sound harsh, right? The way he would try to nudge you, and you could tell not all players were ready for that type of feedback. But for me, it was always a drive, like, I tried to prove, coach is wrong. So yeah.
Amazing, man. We're going to talk a bit about my team now, man. So Ryan played for Liverpool, team I support. So
that's still your team, or
of course.
Because in England, they love their team to the death.
Right.
We got that in America.
I feel like more players in America than teams, or not?
Basketballs, and football.
But for Liverpool, just for the transfer itself, like, how did that come about, Ryan? So, like, I have no knowledge, like, how it works, right? Does Rafa Benitez call you? Like,
no. Well, so football players, they have agents. So they get approached by, let's say, another agent, right? Now, this agent often works for, I guess, the club. So the club instructed, hey, let's say, search for a left winger or striker. Find us options, right? So then the agent's going to look around. And maybe my name is one of the potentials, right? And then the club then instructs an agent, like, try to get in touch with the agent or whatever. So basically, that's how it came about in a nutshell. I was aware that they had interest. The first question is, are you interested? Yes, I was interested. And then they trying to have you then speak to the coach, to give you a kind of like a warm welcome and try to convince you, like, come. And you know how that goes. Like, you're persuading people. And
how old were you when you went to Liverpool?
I was 20 years of age. So, still pretty young if you think about it. If I think about it also, like, I wasn't necessarily ready to go to the Premier League yet.
Yeah.
With a lot of ups and downs, eventually, I had a short 4-year spell. But very good memories.
Well, you played for Liverpool for 4 years.
4 years, more or less, yeah.
That's a long time, I would think.
Yeah, it is. But it was with a lot of ups and downs. So it was not really consistent, always playtime. There I had, especially in my last 2 seasons, I didn't had much playtime like that.
Okay.
And that eventually caused me to, be done with it and trying to leave, Yeah.
Do you think then you left Ajax too early then? It feels like that's what you're saying. So do you think you, in hindsight, you should have stayed another few years, developed?
I would say I would definitely had to stay another 2 years minimum.
Okay.
Yeah. Just because if I look at let's say the players who left Holland for a bigger league, a lot of them, you have a mix of players who leave in similar situation like me because they got an opportunity and want to take it. But you also have a lot of players who were really like the best players in Holland. Like you could tell Holland was too easy for them. And then they arrive as a big player. Remember, for example, Luis Suarez is one of the examples that he really destroyed Holland eventually. And he was ready for a step outside.
Yeah.
So he arrived in Liverpool as a big player.
Yeah.
I arrived in Liverpool as a young player who still had to prove himself. So that was the difference.
Yeah. That makes sense because I guess 2 players that come to mind when you say that are Gravenberch, who's now at Liverpool, who was at Bayern, I think, before, and he didn't go too well for him, right? But now he's doing really well, it seems.
Yes.
And Ligt, he was at Juve and Bayern, it has not gone well for him.
Yeah.
And maybe he can reinvent himself.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to both of them, I guess?
Well, I mean, look, they already chose to leave Ajax. And of course, these teams that they joined are massive. Bayern was massive. Juventus was massive. What you can see now clearly already with Gravenberch is that, he feels more comfortable under the new manager now. He's playing a handful of good games. So the first impression is good. You can tell the reactions of the fans. I already knew his quality. It's just for me that I knew sometimes players, they need some type of guidance from coaches that they feel comfortable. I'm not saying that Klopp didn't do that, but sometimes, you don't know how a player feels. And maybe he was playing in a position that wasn't 100% comfortable. He at least now has 1 year experience already the prior year, with Premier League experience. So now he knew kind of what Premier League was about. And I feel like now he's ready, now he's ready to show. He already showed it a few games, I think, against Manchester United. We can all clearly see how comfortable he was.
Should have watched that game, bro. Amazing. We destroyed them.
So, and he has a big potential to still grow massively. Absolutely.
What about Ligt? Because he was like a wonder kid, right? And it's not really gone that way.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for him?
I mean, mentally, luckily, he has a good head on his shoulders. So I think he eventually will find himself back. What it is overall with football players is that it's easy to say yes to Manchester United or Juventus, but it's very difficult to say no, because the reason you say no is to realize, wait a minute, the way the team plays doesn't fit my game. You understand?
But and maybe it's difficult to say no because that chance might not come around again.
But that's my point, right? Yeah. But even though you go, it then affects the rest of your career.
I see.
Right?
Yeah.
We have it with so many examples, like...
so going to the big boys can sometimes backfire, basically, in football.
Yes, right? So it takes very big balls to say, not right now.
Yeah.
I'm going first somewhere else,
Yeah.
One of the
you got to really believe in yourself.
No, yeah, absolutely. And that's very difficult, right?
Yeah.
So, Gini Wijnaldum was a great example. Yeah. He went from a top team in Holland first to Newcastle.
Yeah.
To get some good Premier League experience, and then
Liverpool.
Liverpool, right? So, Donny van de Beek went from Ajax as a superstar to Manchester United. almost zero playtime.
Yeah.
Totally disappeared. Now he's somewhere in Spain.
What would be the reason? My bad, because as Americans we know basketball.
Yeah.
So if you're a star in college, most likely you and like if you're doing your thing and you're a good player.
Yeah.
Like Kobe, for example.
Yes.
When he went straight from high school straight to he was a high school big star and he got played because of that.
But
so football is different, it seemed like.
Yes and no, but Kobe is, I feel like, an exceptional example. So I would maybe compare him with maybe like a Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Or a Messi.
But my question is for the Americans who want to learn, what would not allow these stars to get playtime when they go
why don't they succeed?
Yes.
Why didn't Ligt succeed? Why
would they push him if they know he's a big, star in one league and then he go to another league? He don't get playtime.
No. So I mean, of course, they're
we're ignorant. Sorry, Americans know nothing about football.
It's fine. But that's the thing, right? So you can, like, let's say if you're in college,
yes,
you can go to LA Lakers, right? Which is considered.
Yes, of course.
Already, like you're already at the top. Higher than that, almost there's not. Or you choose to still go to NBA, but you choose to go for maybe a mid-table team, then become a star there first, and then go to LA Lakers. And you're ready, rather than from college straight to Lakers and then fail. Because once you get stamped as he failed or he's shit, it's difficult to come back from that.
True.
And that is my point. Like it's very difficult, of course, to say no to LA Lakers. Like Jesus, I can live in Los Angeles. I'm not gonna live in Cincinnati. I understand. But that is if you're serious about your career and if you, of course, believe in yourself and I'm here to kill it. Often that in-between step is maybe much better
makes sense. Makes sense.
Makes sense. So right, earlier on, you mentioned about the ups and downs at Liverpool. How was your relationship with Rafa Benitez? Now looking back, you're a bit older, obviously. Like, how would you summarize that?
It was not a real relationship. And, I've done many interviews, about Rafa Benitez. I have to differentiate him being a good coach tactically. And I have to give him that. He was a very tactical genius at that time, in my opinion. Learned a lot from his way of thinking. But he was not a people's manager. Steven Gerrard would say that. Fernando Torres would say that. Like he did not know how to manage players, right? And when I say manage players, like sometimes players, they need a little shoulder tap, like, hey, next time better, or I believe in you. Like he was just expecting you to deliver in what in his definition was what delivery was. And if you didn't, he was like, go aside, I will put the next one. And for me, when I came to the Premier League, the rules were totally different than the rules in Holland. And I had to learn the rules in the UK. Going for the first time to the UK, being 20 years of age, living by myself, coming from my parents' home. I never lived by myself before, learning the English culture, different play style, 4-4-2. And then he expected me to be there from day one. Whereas in Ajax, they are really working with you, telling you, talking with you about positioning and whatever. And there I was kind of by myself. And then the ups and downs were very difficult, Many times I tried to go in his office and get some type of explanation. And you could tell he was frustrated that me coming into his office.
Oh, he didn't like it.
He didn't like it, So he was very short answered, work hard.
Patient with his players.
So I didn't know what it meant, He was just like, work hard. Like, what does it mean, work hard?
Every player has a different personality. And
at that time I just didn't know yet. And that caused me eventually to have a lot of ups and downs with Liverpool in career, and it had effect on my career after.
Did he give you any specific? Because he seems like an intense coach. Like, did he give you specific tactical advice or information?
Not specific, but it was general advice that what he expected from that position.
Okay.
However, it was, of course, sometimes in my experience, I felt like he expected different things from me than other players who would play that position. At that time, I was sometimes competing with Yoshi Benayoun. And Yoshi Benayoun's playstyle was way different than mine, right? He was not as fast. He was more in the ball, the feet, and in between the lines. And he was very skillful. And Benitez expected more of me just making runs. Like, just run. But in Ajax, you learned to understand when to run and when not to run. Sometimes you have to be in the feet. Sometimes you have to be in between the lines. And it almost seemed that I was not allowed to do that. So he expected me to run. And if I didn't run, then I got substituted. Or he felt like, you don't do what I'm telling you to do. And I'm like, you know what I mean? So it was very difficult. It was very difficult at that time, understanding as a 20-year-old, like how to please the manager at that time.
Yeah.
And that was one of the struggles that I had with.
Man.
Oh man, what can you do? I think, like you said, a man manager would have probably been more your preferred style, right?
Yeah, I mean, the managers of today who give younger players more of the time. You know, like if I look at a lot of these young guys at these top teams at Premier League, whether it's in Arsenal and whether it's in Manchester and even Liverpool, like. I'm so surprised how much time they get to actually become the player that they need to be, you know?
Yeah.
Time to change.
Yeah, you like in my time, after a season, they would send you on loan real quick or they would sell you real quick. And now, you know, like players can fuck up 1, 2, 3 seasons and the 4th season finally, finally.
Yeah.
They have more patience somehow, you know? It's definitely a different time, definitely.
I wanted to ask you about a couple of players. So my favorite player of all time, Steven Gerrard. Like, what was he like to play with, to train with? Like, how was that?
For me, also personally, the best player I play with.
Yeah.
At that time, he was in his prime, you know. So he was 27, 28, 29. Incredible, you know, inspiration. Didn't necessarily talk much, but he talked at the right times. At that time, we also had Jamie Carragher, who was more of the talker. So he was the second captain. But Steven Gerrard, just by working and going...
This name's not familiar. He in Saudi?
Yeah. He's the manager of a team called Ettifaq. You follow football a little bit.
I'm learning, bro.
Yes.
Super legend.
Yeah, so he was my teammate at that time in Liverpool. Yeah, he was the captain. And but yeah, he was incredible.
What was he like kind of just to train with and to be around? Like, you say he didn't talk much, but, you know, did he give any guidance or was that not his style at all?
Not necessarily guidance, but he was showing you. So you would actually, like, you know how leaders are, they just move and then you'd be like, I'm going to follow him.
Yeah.
And one of the simple examples I can give, like, every football player sometimes, you know, wakes up, you know, with the on the wrong side of the bed, kind of like moody and feels like, today I don't feel like training. Yeah. You know, and I had a lot of those during that time. If you don't play, you know, it affects your mood, of course. And then on the training session, I was like, you know, I'm going to do the least maybe. And then I would just see him running and going crazy. And just by looking at him, I was like, if he does it and he always plays, like, I should be the least also do it. So
amazing.
He would change my mood. And then I would just also show that, hey, I'm going to do that too, you know? So it was not him be like, come on. But he would just naturally do it.
He lead by example.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of his...
I seen recently a story of Kobe. It reminded me of what you just mentioned. They were saying that there were some players, I believe, for I don't know which, it might have been the Olympics. It was a lot of different players the Olympics, actually, the American team. And they went, the All-Star weekend. And they went out to go, they were saying they went out to go partying.
Oh, yeah.
They come back to the hotel. I don't know if you heard this story. They come back to the hotel.
I've heard it.
And Kobe is up 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning going to the gym.
Yeah.
Because he was like, I don't want to go party with you guys. And they looking at it like, what's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
But because he was steadfast in that, by the end of the week, everybody was on a page of Kobe. They always waking up 4 in the morning, going to the gym because they saw him putting that work and he was a lead. He led by example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
that's
that story
incredible.
remind me of that.
No, that's amazing, man.
Yeah.
You mentioned Jamie Carragher as well. I think he's massively underrated. Like, in his time, he's one of the best defenders in Europe, right? And he plays himself down too.
Yeah.
How is he, like, in training and to be around?
So, like, Jamie Carragher was like, what you notice when people try to judge a good player is only like what he really does with the ball. But I feel like a good player also is all-rounded in terms of, like, if he can see and read the game. Yeah. You know, and one of, in my opinion, like, definitely he was a very good leader, good defender. But Jamie, if you, like, let's say, he knew his weaknesses. So he knew 1-against-1, you know, he would maybe not be necessarily the best, you know, right? You could dribble him if you want, and he was maybe not the fastest. So by him understanding that, he would make sure that he would almost never be in a 1-against-1. So he would talk and go and lead to make sure that defense stays intact, so that then he can be great.
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes defenders don't talk much and then they get exposed 1-against-1 and then they lose the 1-against-1 and everyone's going to look at them. But it's already the mistakes that the teammates made beforehand to walk out position. So Jamie was very, very vocal, constantly, 90 minutes, put everyone down through corners, free kicks. And that was one of his great strengths, like really lead the team and make sure that he then could stand out.
In training, he was the same? Very demanding?
Yeah, very demanding, very demanding. Yeah, very demanding. And, also, even though he was very serious, he had also a lot of sense of humor. I think you can kind of see that already now, also with him being a pundit. Going back and forth sometimes with Gary Neville when they are not agreeing on things. But definitely learn a lot from him.
Amazing. Yeah. Fernando Torres is another guy, Liverpool fans of that era, everybody was a big fan of his, right? It seemed like after kind of 2.5 seasons, he kind of tailed off. Like, what happened there? Like, did you see that? I mean, I'm sure injuries played a part, but did you see specifically like what led to that kind of decline?
Maybe he had a lot of expectation in terms of winning trophies, and that didn't happen. And then maybe the ambition and the hungriness maybe start to fade because he gave the club so much, and then eventually the move from him to Chelsea, I guess, was one of the probably aspirations behind it, to think I'm going to Chelsea and win trophies, and he did. But of course, in terms of his individual game in Chelsea was massively different than, of course, Liverpool, right? And I think the main difference was when he went to Chelsea, he had to deal with a lot of superstars, and in Liverpool, he was the superstar. And I don't know if he would maybe turn it back and to stay in Liverpool, but different. Liverpool definitely appreciated him, the fans, and they would carry him.
He was amazing. 2-3 years, amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You just said something as well. Like, why didn't we win trophies? Because that team, Alonso, Mascherano, Carragher, Arbeloa was quality, like Gerrard, Torres. Like, why didn't that team win trophies?
So that is one of the things that my criticism is towards, let's say, managers, right? And managers nowadays, they do it much better, in my opinion. I feel like at that time, Benitez especially, they were counting too much on one certain 11. So you were losing the rest of the players, like myself, and the players who were not playing as much. So he would not give players much attention. Then as soon as there was an injury, all of a sudden you're important to him. We see through that. So we're not going to maybe naturally give as much to the coach if we don't feel we are part of the team.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. But if you look at how Jurgen Klopp did it, everyone felt important. Even, the players on the bench. Once they came on, they went 100%. And that is what makes a good coach a coach, that he is able to not just make 11 players important, but the whole squad. And it's a long season. So Torres had ups and downs through even his best seasons. Gerrard maybe was struggling, not always was able to, and that, I feel like at the end, gave us the short end of the stick, like not making it. Bear in mind, we were also competing with a Manchester United at the time with Cristiano Ronaldo, Rooney, Tevez.
Amazing,
this was also legendary Manchester United.
Legendary,
so it was not easy. It was
Let me
definitely.
ask you a question, because this is something I'm always curious about for football players. Growing up, did you have a favorite team?
Yeah.
Like he's Liverpool, they diehard Liverpool. Like they don't switch up.
Yeah.
So did you play against your favorite team? How did you face something like that?
No, I grew up in Amsterdam, so my grew up was, of course, first the team that I eventually made my first professional game was Ajax.
And they didn't play in the league. They didn't play with the same league of Liverpool, Manchester.
No, they played in Holland.
Dutch.
It's in Holland,
Yes.
And then throughout that, I started to grow love for Arsenal, because a lot of Dutch players went for Arsenal.
Companies, guys.
This is what I mean. So Arsenal's UK.
Yes.
So playing on the Liverpool,
Arsenal,
how did you react playing against Arsenal? Like that's
So that was one of the, of course, it was like for me it was, even though I was never an Arsenal player or whatever, but from the inside it was special to play against Arsenal. That's
probably like how Kobe felt when he played against Michael Jordan.
Okay.
That was his idol.
Yeah,
I keep bringing it back to basketball because this is
that's what you know. That's your reference.
And this is for American viewers can understand.
Yeah.
We're going on a journey with Mutah, man. So that's why we're doing all these football guests, football managers and owners.
Yeah.
Before it was soccer, now it's football. Now I get mad when I hear Americans call it soccer.
Exactly. Good. Educate them. Yeah.
What, Ryan, looking back at your time at Liverpool, what would you say your personal highlights were? I'd imagine the Arsenal game is definitely one of them because I remember that game.
Yeah,
vividly.
one of those. Yeah. I mean, look, highlights are not always necessarily that meant that you won the game or you scored necessarily. And of course, often I would say, I had a few special goals that I made throughout my career in Liverpool. But, highlights often were also just you coming on and making the difference. I had often I remember I was at one point labeled as a super sub, because every time when I came on, I was changing the game for the team. So feeling that recognition, even though you were not at that time necessarily a starter, but your teammates happy with you, these were really highlights for me, right? The fans were happy with you, and eventually the coach, So I didn't always score coming on, but I do felt the recognition hey, because of me, the game changed, and therefore eventually we won the game.
Yeah.
So these for me, these for me were definitely most of the highlights,
Amazing, wow.
Yeah.
So something I wanted to ask you, I mentioned it to you outside as well. So recently, Mike Dean, he went on Simon Jordan's podcast and he spoke about Anthony Taylor, the referee. He didn't send him to the VAR monitor because he wanted to protect him. And you famously put the Howard Webb in a Man United shirt image on Twitter back in the day. So I wanted to ask you, do you think referees back then, I don't want to say corrupt's a strong word, but do you think they were influenced back then? Do you think there was something at play?
I've been in many different leagues and I've experienced many different referees. I always would used to think and believe at the end of the day, referees are human beings. Yeah. When they grew up, they maybe were a fan of a team or idolized a certain player, And if now you have, as a referee, you are not allowed to be biased, you have to be neutral and whatever. But if I'm not mistaken, I think it's common knowledge that Howard Webb was Manchester United fan or really? Sir Alex Ferguson fan. If I'm not mistaken, I've read it somewhere. So that did not surprise me that eventually maybe he would sometimes or often whistle in their favor. I don't know, But again, just judging on that particular game, it was an FA Cup game, and we got knocked out on Old Trafford by decisions that influenced the game from Howard Webb, and that gave basically just the game to Manchester United. And in my frustration, I lashed out on social media, tweeting about him, and that got me in trouble.
So, Ryan, who did it? You did the Photoshop yourself?
No. So, that time Instagram didn't exist yet. It was Twitter.
You was angry with the referee.
Yeah, So Twitter was the number one platform at that time, and everyone was on Twitter. And I was one of the very first football players who was on Twitter. So I was very active on Twitter.
2011, 2010, something like this?
I think it was 11.
Yeah.
It was 11, or even 10, if I'm not mistaken. It was 10, I think. Anyway, after that, we left the stadium because it was in Old Trafford. On our way back to Liverpool in the bus, I start tweeting, and at that time they called Howard Webb the best referee in the Premier League. So I was like, they call him the best referee? Don't make me laugh. I started tweeting, and then you have all your mentions. Fans can retweet or whatever, right? Yeah. And somehow I saw a photo of Howard Webb in a Manchester United kit. So I took that photo.
Because they dig it up, bro. If it's on the internet.
I took that photo and posted it as an original tweet rather than retweeting. That was maybe my mistake.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it seemed like I photoshopped.
Yeah, they're gonna you photoshopped.
Yeah, I photoshopped it. So I posted that photo and it went nuts. It went viral instantly.
And it was photoshopped though.
It was photoshopped. So basically he was Team Manchester. That's why of course they won. Right? CNN, Sky.
Well, they say all publicity is good publicity.
Crazy.
We're still talking about it 14 years later.
Yeah, it's crazy. And
what was the punishment? What did they do?
So imagine this. Also, one of very
the
nice
FIFA, whatever. What is it? Premier League?
Yeah, it'll be the Premier League, so it'll be the referee
FA,
association.
Yeah. So at that time, now you do, but at that time you didn't had all these disciplinary rules in contracts. Now, if a player signs a contract, in your contract automatically says,
if you do this,
on social media, or you speak or you talk a certain way, you embarrass the team, you get fined or disciplinary. That time you didn't have that.
Wow.
Because of me,
they made that law.
They made that a law now.
Man,
I remember.
So whoever get fined should give you a percentage.
Bro, it's crazy. So I was fined.
Crazy.
I was fined £10,000. Was
wow.
Of course, a very expensive tweet. But I remember going to the FA there, like they had like a little courtroom and you had these people from the FA and I had to sit there. And then they were really like four older men and they were really like, Ryan, this never happened before. So yeah, we had to talk amongst ourselves, like how are we, make an example out of you, right?
Wow.
So, I was suspended for, I don't know, like 1 or 2 games and then a fine and then,
wow.
Did
you ever play a game and that same referee was refereeing in his game again? Did you ever run into him again?
I don't think so. No, because shortly after I left Liverpool.
I see.
But of course I had to publicly apologize and blah, blah, blah.
Which makes sense. It's the right thing to do.
Rafa say anything?
At that time, by the way, Rafa was not the coach anymore. It was Kenny Dalglish.
Yeah,
he just came as an intern.
Interim, yeah.
So, it was around that time.
He said anything, or he just kind of
No, he didn't say anything. No.
Probably agreed.
Wow. Yeah,
Just moving away from Liverpool, Ryan. So you moved to a few years later to Besiktas, and you also played for Galatasaray. How was that experience? Because from the outside, Turkish football looks like amazing, intense. Fans are very passionate. Like, how was that experience?
Yeah, Turkish football is incredible. Really enjoyed it. I ended up staying 10 years in Turkey. But yeah, played for 2 giant teams. Very fortunate. 2 big rival teams, obviously. So, fans from Besiktas didn't like. Eventually, I came out, to play for Galatasaray. But I was very fortunate to play for those teams. I made, great impact for Turkish football at that time. And yeah, the fans are something else. English fans are, of course, very passionate. But the passion that Turkish fans have is another,
more so, yeah?
It's another level.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, so the derby, so between Liverpool and Man United, let's say, for example, would you say that's more intense or Istanbul derby?
No, the Istanbul derby, like Galatasaray Fenerbahce or Galatasaray Besiktas is way more intense. Like these people are really intense.
You've been to Istanbul, like you see, the football is mad. It's huge over there.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting, man.
Yeah.
Moving on to more the kind of psychological, mental aspects of football, like what kind of mental preparation did you do throughout your career, like before games, in training? Like obviously there's a lot of physical stuff, but is there any mental thing, meditation, I don't know, yoga, anything?
No. And I must say that, of course, had changed over the time a lot. When I was young, I'm just, you think you're going to just start playing football and then eventually you want to try and figure out like, hey, why did you not feel as nice today? Or why did you play good today? So you're trying to remember like, what did you do prior days? Maybe sleeping early, maybe eating better. So I try to like memorize and see like, okay, so this is what I did in order to feel great, right? And then I slowly shaped my rituals in terms of like, so one of the things that I end up feeling and noticing was like, I couldn't eat steak 1-2 days before a game because it made me feel bloated and heavy. And then in games, I wouldn't feel fast and like quick. Yeah. So, and I end up, I think from like age 25, 26, discovering like, no, I need to eat light. I need to eat light. Not a lot in front of before the game, like in the morning. Let's say you have an evening game. Okay, in the morning you have a good breakfast. With lunchtime you eat a proper meal, but then usually you have another meal right before the game. That's where a lot of players would like eat a lot. I would then eat very light because I would feel bloated a lot of times.
Interesting, man. What about like challenging moments in your career? You referenced a few at Liverpool. I'm sure, throughout your career, maybe, Fulham, Hoffenheim, at different clubs. Were there challenging moments there, and how did you deal with them?
One of the biggest challenges was for me going from Liverpool to Germany, and more so an ego challenge, because I now respectfully went to a team that was just an average, mid-table team. So grown up in Ajax, always in the spotlight, always have so much PR and media attention. Liverpool, same thing. And now you went to Germany, where the attention was way less than I was used to. The attention, just overall, people at that time, the media was not writing as much about me anymore, like before. And that was, it would bruise your ego at that time, so because you would still feel like, hey, I'm Ryan Babel, like, what's going on? Like, nobody cares anymore, right? So that was one of the challenges that I had to deal with. I must say that at that time in Germany made me eventually an overall better player, because this was the very first time I played for a team that don't 90% have the ball anymore. Now you're on the opposite side. So now for the first time, you experience what it feels like to be the underdog.
Wow.
Way more than, the favorite of two teams.
Harder.
So now it's like, what are you doing if you don't have the ball? How can you still be of value for your team? So I had to learn, and I learned that throughout my career in Germany.
That's probably like similar, I guess when Tupac died, like you're then now not as prominent, right? Like what do you do then? How do you deal with that?
We, I kind of understand them, because we went through that. We went from being on, Pac, the #1 selling rap artist, and when he passed away, like he was setting our career up where it was going to be next level. He's about to buy a compound. All of us was going to have a house. We had this plan. And then a couple months later, everything just went to pieces, So we had to bounce back and then we went through a lawsuit with Death Row. We were signed to Death Row Records, went through a lawsuit, in and out of court for like a year. That took, in rap, you got to hit it when it's hot. So Pac died. The last thing he was speaking about is the Outlaws. You got to come out then. The longer you wait before you drop an album, the less anticipation you're going to get from your fans, It was a struggle. Then we went independent, We had to go independent. So I kind of know exactly where you're coming from.
How was that time with Death Row? The character, crazy. But how was it really from the inside? Like
the inside, I'm surprised it lasted long. The way I'm surprised it lasted that long.
Okay,
because it was bound to crumble. I think Pac was like, "What's that game where you put the jingle?"
Okay,
Pac came. He was the last jingle because Pac. He was a very intelligent person, but he was hot-headed.
Okay, yeah.
Suge was hot-headed. It didn't match.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Pac needed someone to be like, you got to balance him out, because he coming from getting shot. He ready to go war with East Coast. He needed somebody to say,
like,
let's calm down. But unfortunately, when he got to Death Row, Suge wasn't like that with Snoop. He wasn't running around with Snoop. He felt like Pac was a little brother, that they was on the same page. Let's go burn the world down together. And that's why it collapsed, because you needed that balance. You know what I mean?
And could you see, like at that time with Snoop and maybe Dre, that even though they were team Pac and whatever, that they felt like hey, like this is not our agenda, kind of.
They definitely had to pull back, because Dre was smart. He was ahead of the game.
Yes,
because I remember seeing him coming less to the studio. At first, Dre wanted to do Hit 'Em Up. A lot of people don't know that. He was ready to produce Hit 'Em Up. He was like, man, let us produce that. He wanted to be part of that East Coast, West Coast war. But I guess when it did come out, he started to see the aftermath of it. Dre was like, man, I got to get away from this. You know what I mean? Snoop also, what probably protected them is that they had their own little crew. Dre was different. He had people in Interscope that was really backing him. Snoop had his own crew, so he couldn't really mingle with Suge like that, because Snoop was a Crip.
Yes.
Suge was Pyru, they blood, so they couldn't really go. Pac was neutral. You know what I mean? So he was able to really fit in. But they started to fall back. But when Pac died is when everybody really started leaving after Snoop left, the Dog Pound left. And it was one of them things that I'm surprised it lasted, because, Suge had a $300 million company. $400 million company.
In the 90s.
At that time,
But still in the studio, you got pit bulls over here. You got people getting beat up over here.
Yeah.
So it was crazy. You know what I mean? Eventually,
it was not run corporate.
Wasn't run corporate. And one thing about that, in any industry, nobody gonna continue to back that mindset. You know what I mean? That's why they said he got to go.
Yeah.
They say he got to go.
Yeah,
crazy, man.
Piece of history, man. That I remember growing up. You know, like
legendary times.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And even Pac was on. He was on death row only for 11 months after he came home from prison.
Oh.
He was alive only for 11 months. So
feels
all
like
of that
years.
stuff, he felt like years. You know what I mean?
Wow. Incredible.
Crazy. Ryan, what about dealing with like nerves and fear? So, you're going out as a kid, you're going out 50,000 people. Even when, you're getting older, you're playing Champions League, quarterfinals and things like that. Like, what is that like and how do you manage your...
That's true, because I want to know that, because we come from that lifestyle as musicians.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we alter our mindset. In order to go into a Coliseum, we take our mind somewhere else. We might drink, even though I don't do that stuff now, but that's how we prepare. But an athlete got to be clean.
Yes.
So it's nothing that can help you face that. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's different situations and circumstances. It's not always the same, because if you are in shape, you feel good. You played well the past few games. You come in and you're confident, and of course there's like maybe little a healthy anxiety, like hey like another game you wanna try and do the same and deliver. But then as soon as you're on the pitch, it disappears, because like after the first few touches, after the first few touches, especially if they're good, you're in it.
What about if the you go to play a team and everybody in the crowd booing you?
But that doesn't affect you if you're like I said, if you're in good shape, if you're feeling yourself, you're playing well. It's actually boosts you more.
It motivates you.
Yeah. The difficult part is when you're not feeling well. So I had moments where 1-2 games it didn't go as well. Criticism start coming. Or like you see people like the media writing, and now the third game, now you have to prep for the third game, and you're gonna overthink. Like last 2 games, they were saying this, they were saying that. You're trying to make sure you're not putting yourself in the same situations again to mess up. So in the beginning, the mistake that I made was to try and do overly my best, more than I should. And that's where you even more. No. So what did I learn? Actually is like, no, go back to the basics. Control, pass,
and focus,
move, try to help the team, work hard.
Keep it simple.
And then slowly, when you feel like, okay, now your team is doing well, maybe your team's scoring first, you're getting more confidence. Now you're slowly growing into the game. So you can work yourself into the game and then build from that. But often guys who maybe like mess up, from day one, like you have it now, for example, with Anthony at Man U. Like every time it's getting worse, you're trying to do the most. To think, to show like, I'm Brazilian, I'm good. But no, like relax. Like do the basics first. Make sure that we can trust you, and then we can, he does the basic things well. And then from there, slowly you start building.
Step by step.
And that is one of the things that I had to learn throughout my career. Like,
but it's sad there was no one around you to tell you that at the time, though.
No, because every player deals with it differently, like every player deals with it differently. And coaches also don't necessarily always have the right answer. This is just my experience. And some players, sometimes you think that they would feel the same. And then when you talk about it, be like, I don't care about it, criticism. I don't give a fuck. Like, it is what it is. I played bad today. Next game, I forget about it. I'm like,
you gotta black it out. You gotta black it out.
You know what I mean? Some players are mentally maybe more stronger. I was often an overthinker, so I needed like, after a bad game, if I had the whole week of preparation, the whole week for me was terrible. So I had training, but I was like, fuck, man. And then the next game came. I played a good game, then the next week would be good, So that was just me naturally,
So just moving on to kind of Saudi, obviously the focus of the show is about the development of Saudi Vision 2030. What do you think the league needs to do to go to the next level? So we see like, even this window, Cancelo came, Ivan Toney's now there as well. So, Ronaldo's there, loads of big players. But what can they do to really grow the game and make it something that's appealing to people all over the world to watch?
I think... I know and I understand that, it is what it is, right? Like when you talk about football, naturally you're not going to say like, oh, Saudi and Middle East and or Asia or whatever. Like you would believe European football. This is what it is.
This is where it's at now.
So to come and be part of that history of decades and centuries of European great football, Champions League and all the things. Like we know that a Saudi team probably never going to play Champions League. We have to accept that. That's unfortunately the reality.
How come is Champions League only?
Champions League is because it's like basically the champions of all the major leagues that they give a chance to come together, right?
Yes.
And of course, over the years, over the decades, they have changed it and add maybe like Cyprus here or whatever, like
South America players.
No. Like
so
just
European.
Middle.
Yeah,
exactly right. But other countries that before maybe would never had a chance to qualify for, they made it a little bit easier now for them also.
They tweaked it a little bit.
Yeah, so. But for Saudi, I think they have to maybe just try and create more football events. Right, more things for fans to understand, to entertain.
Yeah.
I know they had to maybe start aggressively, so they started aggressively with Ronaldo and trying to get really appealing names. So they got the attention now. How do you keep it? Because if you remember well, China tried it as well at one point.
They folded in a few months of
years. And then at one point, like it collapsed, and then now,
Nothing.
So. The question is like, what happens if Ronaldo's retires from Saudi League? Will people still look at the Saudi League because Ronaldo's very influential? We clearly see that.
Yeah.
So I think they have to try and build,
some solid
from the ground foundations that at least they can maintain some type of growth, right?
Yeah.
So if they are attracting European football players, like don't all of a sudden stop. Like continue with it and try to be consistent with it. And then from there, try to add more things that it will eventually be appealing for football fans to eventually just continue watching Saudi league overall.
Saudi football?
I don't watch it necessarily like full 90 minutes because also, to be honest, it's very difficult to find Saudi League games.
That's what someone
when you
said.
live in Europe.
It was hard to find it in Europe. And some European fan, who told us this? Fabrizio said. Because, living in Saudi for 14 years, I was surprised to see like Europeans just walking around with Saudi Al Hilal jersey, Nasser jersey. So you're starting to see they are getting that outside attention and people starting to pay attention with. I seen a European say, he was a British guy saying his favorite team was Al Hilal. Like they starting to choose Saudi team. But I think the advice you said is important. You got to build from the ground up. You know what I mean?
And it's a very like gray area in terms of like what you said with the jerseys. It's most now, of course, I've seen Saudi jerseys now also in Europe, but it's because of Ronaldo and because of Neymar, right? Before, and you never saw them.
True.
So football fans either are just fans of the team, or they're just fans of the player, and as soon as the player goes, then we're not fan of them anymore. So forget the jersey. Now it's the new jersey. So
I see.
How can you sustain and keep those fans attracted to the club?
Yeah, how you? I believe they got a plan. One thing about Saudi,
exactly,
I
right?
believe they're definitely gonna make it happen because
that is one of the things that
people thought it was similar to China, just throwing money. But they really have a plan,
exactly.
I think if they stick to it, it will work.
Because they have the World Cup in 2034, so I think so. There's Vision 2030, but I think the World Cup,
For the first time, I think in history, if I'm not mistaken, a Saudi player got signed to a European league.
Check you out, bro. You researching, huh?
What's his name? Saud
Abdelhamid, I think his name is. He plays for Roma.
So I think
that is maybe something also that could help to try and have more Saudi players try and succeed. Because. What you notice in Europe, once they do well, let's say Champions League game, then the commentator will be like, oh, Saudi player, and he came from Al Ahly, and they produce talent. So now it's like, oh, okay.
That's the next level. Yeah,
you understand?
That's how they need
also invest in youth and whatever, like try to produce talent, get them over, to Europe and try to succeed there as well. Like let them represent, the country Saudi as well.
That's actually, so my view is that I think a big investment in academies and coaching, because we don't need to discuss the numbers, but Neymar, Ronaldo, they're on huge money.
Yeah.
But if you can invest like a portion of that into high quality data analysis, scouts, coaches, and really build the academies, I think that that's what's going to push Saudi football.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's true.
What about investing? So, you discussed previously about you're an investor. What Saudi's doing now is they're privatizing a lot of the clubs. So you can basically invest and buy a piece or the whole football club. Would you be interested in something like that going forward?
Absolutely. It's something that I actually already have been thinking about for a very long time. Like I never see something common that ex-football player is all of a sudden an owner of a team. Like you have a few somewhere, like they are part of it.
Gary Neville and Southwood.
Yeah, but then even then it's not as endorsed, right?
Yeah.
Like why don't we have finally let's say someone in a position like how Abramovich was, like the face of Chelsea. Like an old football player, and you'd be like, and I believe like often let's say Manchester United is I think a great example, like great club with great history, right? But right now for however long, fans are frustrated with their results. Often the managers the first they blame. So at one point you had all the good managers and they're still failing. Now you have to scratch your head, like how come you're still failing? We had Mourinho, we had all these Louis van Gaal, like come on, we had good coaches. Why is Man United still failing? If you talk about management, you not just talk about coaches. You talk about people in the board, people who make decisions, people who pull the triggers. Maybe they're not the right people are in position there, right? So now they have to scratch their head and really dive in. Like we have to really reconstruct, get everyone out and put new people in position. I believe if you have ex-players in all the right positions, you keep, eventually football. You got to
bring this knowledge to Saudi, man. Because now, so they're raising money for 6 clubs. So Al Khaloud is one of them. So we're going to interview some of the management there. But to me, I think that's something that, someone like you or somebody, ex-players could do, come and bring that knowledge of scouting, director of football, technical director, and really do something on a small budget. You don't need to spend 100 million,
absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like I've seen how Ajax operates. So, I have a lot of insights, and Ajax have to do it with talent because they don't necessarily have the Manchester City money, and that's one of their rules and goals. Like try to produce 2-3 players to the first team every single year, and it's educating them from the ground up to be ready.
That's amazing.
And then they sell. That's their business model. So that's how they make money.
It's amazing,
Bro, honestly, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
it makes sense because you play the game. The players, they know the game.
They know,
You got that in basketball. You get a lot of NBA players, coaches, or buying the league, buying the team. And
Steve Kerr and these guys,
So if any Saudi league is interested in being serious,
No, they raise it. So there's six. I believe it's 6 clubs. They're actually raising money, so you can invest in them. So I'm gonna send it to you afterwards. I'll WhatsApp it to you. But you can do that.
It might be your chance. You gotta get in early, bro. Get in early. You're good.
A few more topics and then we'll close off, man. I appreciate your time. So I wanted to talk about Liverpool today. So Arne Slot, fellow Dutchman.
They not doing well, Liverpool.
No, but you got that wrong.
Yo, they really get sensitive. British people are sensitive over football.
No, we do really good, bro.
He's like, no. I'm joking with you, bro.
So he's a Dutchman, right? He just took over and there was some skepticism, right? Because I didn't know much about him. But, did you know about him before and how do you think he's doing?
Yeah, no, he did very well. He made a great name for himself in Holland with Feyenoord. Played some great football, made him champion. Also, European football with Feyenoord. He did well. But the skepticism often came like if you analyze Dutch coaches when they go abroad, they always want to bring only Dutch players in, right? And usually they are Dutch players from Holland who don't have the experience from, let's say, Premier League. So often they need time and then it fills.
Yeah.
Or they come in with their whole Dutch staff who also don't have experience, right? Yeah. So it takes time for them then to get to know the league, to get to know, whatever. I think, of course, one of the great decisions is that you have assistants who are already there, who know the players, who know the club. Smart. Players who already have the experience. And in this case, he is very fortunate to have, someone like Virgil van Dijk, who already been in Liverpool a long time. And as you saw, he hasn't brought any Dutch players in, surprisingly. So It's good. I think, like he said, the squad overall is good enough. But naturally, every season you try and hope as fan that they're going to add more quality. But he probably saw the preseason and was like, listen, this is a really good squad. With my ability, he probably believes he can,
So you rate him highly? You think he's going to be a success?
I think long term, he can definitely be a success. Yeah, long term. Let's see, first season. I don't think we should have too high of expectations yet. Things go well now, but let's see how he deals with when things maybe not go so well. And it can happen. Football season is long.
Charlotte's going to go well though.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about another fellow Dutchman.
Manchester United, we want them to beat Liverpool.
Nah, we don't, bro. We just destroyed them. You didn't see the game? So a few more questions and then we'll wrap up, Ryan. Just a couple on Man United. So EriK Ten Hag, I think you played under him, right?
Yes.
So I think you was on loan at Ajax and I think he's a coach, right? So one thing that's commonly said is that United have no kind of style of play and, what are they doing? But what is your view of Ten Hag? Does he have a distinct style of play? Will he be successful at Man United? What do you think?
It's it's also this debate because he had, of course, now over the past window, he spent some money. I still believe that Ten Hag is a great coach. I've seen him working. I've seen his vision, and I've seen what he has done once he has the right players. I still believe he not necessarily has the right squad to execute how he want to play.
He spent like 700 million euros.
Yes, but again, crazy, 700 million because that's the market now.
That's the norm.
That is unfortunately the market now. Like it didn't need to be. Like in my opinion, a lot of these guys that are great players or good players who are now worth like, respectfully, when they bought Sancho for 100 something, like he's talented, but it's the market.
Yeah,
I wouldn't. Yeah, he wouldn't be like.
But you think Ten Hag still can be successful?
No, I don't know if he can still be successful. No.
Yeah.
But if you would give Ten Hag, let's say, I don't know. I don't want to talk about money, but let's say he could replace players in terms of the way he wanted. Because often a player is good when his plan comes to how you say that? To vision, like it comes to life.
Yeah.
And they would say if a shit manager if it doesn't work. It's that simple. He came to Manchester United, and then I already knew. Like the moment he came, I already knew from day one, De Gea is gonna get a kick.
Because he doesn't play with the...
Yes, he's not good with the feet. He wants a good keeper with the feet. Ronaldo's good with the feet, but of course, unfortunately, he fucks up with the way he concedes his goals.
Who, Ronaldo?
No, the goalkeeper.
The keeper, yeah. So
too close to Ronaldo.
There's criticism on
there. We'll have to edit
that out. so then you had the Maguire thing and a lot of these, like players who he then wants to play a certain way who cannot deliver to what he wants, how he wants them to execute his plan. So they mess up.
Yeah.
And to then, from there, let's say, again, I make things up. Yeah. He comes in and he sees, from the 25 players that I have, literally maybe only 6 players can do what I want. So I have to replace 18 players before I finally can show. Takes years. Wow. Selling, buying, and then also, maybe he wants to buy the right players. Yeah. But the board doesn't want to support. So then he has to go for a plan B or plan C. So yes, he maybe bought players and he spent it, but maybe they were naturally not necessarily his first choice.
Yeah.
Why does Manchester United not have a top striker still?
Yeah.
Because the first choice that he don't want to play for United, so he has to buy plan B or plan C or even plan E.
But Ryan, so like
it's shit. I know. It's what it is. But to just always directly point, fingers at a coach. We can also say, look, Arteta, the first few years was terrible.
Yeah.
They remained with him. They trusted his vision. Now we say, we see it. But it took, how many years it took before Arteta finally
probably 3-4 years,
It took a few years.
So do you think, just objectively, obviously, not Liverpool kind of hat on, do you think he can still or will still be successful at Man United?
I don't think, at one point you looked at all the things. Eventually, like he needs luck. That's the only thing that can save him.
I mean, we call it dua.
Yeah. Because his margin of time is completely gone.
Yeah,
Gone. It's gone.
Yeah.
So he needs luck. He needs to win. Things need to eventually play out the way he wants. That people be like, oh, now we can play good football. We see that he actually played good football, but it's difficult
because you see, right? Like what people are saying now is like, Arne Slot had 3 games. Look how we're playing.
Yes.
This guy's had 2 years.
Yes,
they still suck.
Yes, yes. But you see, like again, it's. I don't want to say it's luck for Arne Slot, but it's one of those things. It's like. It's like if the coin is on the right side of for you and it helps you win 9, then of course you look at. But you see, even Arne Slot still, hey, I'm not satisfied yet. There's still a lot of improvement to be made because he knows. Like I know you guys are now, but
there's going to be a time when it's not all rosy and stuff.
Yeah,
cool. I have a few quick fire questions and we're done. Right? Thank you, man. We took so much of your time.
I appreciate you, bro. The patient you waited. I really appreciate you, bro.
Football idols growing up. Who were the main guys?
I would start with Patrick Kluivert, Thierry Henry, Kaká, and of course, you talk about the likes of Marco van Basten. You talk about Clarence Seedorf, Edgar Davids. A lot of these old timers, the vintage players that you talk about Pavel Nedved, Luis Figo, Rivaldo, a lot of these
looked
legends.
up to these guys.
Yeah.
Best, I think you've already answered this, but best player you played with?
Yeah, Steven Gerrard.
Best player you played against?
I would say it's weird. I played against many great defenders, and even sometimes I had the most terrible games against unknown defenders who were just constantly giving me a hard time. But for podcast sake, also the ones that are maybe recognizable, I would say Maicon, the Brazilian Maicon, who was in Inter Milan in his prime. I had a hard time with him.
Best team that you played against?
Best team that I played against.
Can't say Arsenal.
No. I think Barcelona that time with Neymar, Suarez, with MSN.
It's a good team.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Which manager had the most influence on you?
Dutch manager Henk ten Kaat. I had him at Ajax. Yeah.
Okay.
So he was the assistant coach from Frank Rijkaard at the time when they gave Messi their debut. So he was at that time in Barcelona. He was also assistant coach in Chelsea at one point from what's his coach name? Everton Grant? Yeah, so he was assistant coach there, and he was eventually also Ajax coach. So
why was he so influential? Like, what did he do for you?
He was just the way he was talking to me. He made me believe me. Made me get the belief in myself. Like I was not allowed, for example, like when I had the ball 1-against-1, I was not allowed to play the ball back. Or he's like, no. He's like, next time if you don't go 1-against-1, he's like, I'll stop you. I was like, coaches would be like, keep it simple, don't lose the ball. He wanted me to go.
Wow.
Amazing. Give you that confidence.
He would really be like, you have to go. Like, no other choice.
Highest point in football, in terms of a personal highlight, what was the peak for you?
My debut.
For Ajax?
Yeah, my debut. Yeah, my first
Amazing.
game. Yeah.
And the last question, what is next for you? Like, what do you see the next few years having in store for you?
I don't know next few years, but I mean, like one day you would definitely see me being some type of like club owner in football.
Yeah?
Dope.
Inshallah.
You together, bro.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
We got to own the club, bro.
Yeah.
Inshallah in Saudi, man.
Yeah. Definitely be involved in companies that have and change, the world maybe, for a good cause. I just want to do good for the world in terms of to give an example real quick. Like, I don't believe in wiring money to a charity because they say, we're gonna give it to the poor and blah blah blah, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
do it yourself.
If I want to impact, I want to do it myself, and you know. So that's why I'm waiting, and to actually have influence like that, you know, you need to be resourceful. So I'm still working.
I saw you're way more cerebral than I thought. So before you came, because you were late, we were talking about like bricks and the economy and all these different things, and now you're talking about like investing and helping people and these things. So I mean, is this the norm for footballers? Like, have I been judging them as too shallow all this time? Or
I mean, it's not the norm, but you have a few intelligent there. But most of them, or a lot of them, once they retire, they just want to disappear and focus on family and be like, you know, like think about just their family. It's just so much that have to deal with, and you need to want it, to be able to deal with it. And I feel like there's more to me than just Ryan Babel.
You gotta feel it like this comes from being natural.
Well, it's
to want to help the people, to want to give back. You know what I mean?
It's nice to hear. Is there anything any like charities or any kind of causes in particular that you care about? Is it like the environment, like you said, I think, or
there are a lot of different charities that when I see, I feel connected the urge to help, but I cannot. You know,
but you can do it yourself. But
I cannot do it myself yet. The way how I want to do it. You understand? And I also know, you know, like if you help just one person, you helped someone, and I understand that. But somehow I'm just very impatient. Like I just want to be more.
May Allah aid you.
I want to scale more.
Yeah, may Allah aid you, allow you to do this. You know, But as he said, what would be the cause you would be interested in starting with? If you, let's say you start your own charity in the future, what would be the first thing that you try to do on the ground?
The first thing.
Like some people.
It depends. I feel like a lot of these things are very important for me. You can talk about like just as simple as a lot of these kids who, let's say, their parents are kind of neglecting them, and therefore they choose the wrong path.
Giving back, starting in the inner cities and stuff like that.
But it can also just be as simple as, you know, giving the fair and right education to certain category of kids that never ever going to have that certain education. You know, like
it's amazing, bro.
Yeah, it's
giving back
deep.
is important.
It's a lot.
Giving back is important.
You know,
so may Allah aid you on this.
Allah help you know, can be things in football like
teach the Americans how to play football.
But no, there's a lot. And that's why there's so much. You know,
true.
There's so much.
But that's amazing that you have that intention. And inshallah, you know, it comes to life.
Inshallah.
But that's it, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you again, man. Thanks for being patient.
I'm
usually always on time. Usually Shats be the one a little late.
I'm always late, bro.
He got here early.
I was late too. So Ryan, I'm so sorry, but traffic in Dubai is nuts. Now, what's going on in Dubai?
Wow.
Appreciate you, bro.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. Really. And we got to invite you to Saudi as well, man.
Okay, man.
You got to come visit, bro.
Absolutely.
You know, me and my partners, we got to. Have you ever had smoked barbecue? American style. Barbecue ribs, brisket.
I mean,
Come to Saudi. We got one of the best on this side of the world.
All right, cool.
We got you,
cool.
Bro.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.